Welcome back to the vlog. This is vlog number 4 for Monaco 2. My name is Andy Schatz, and I'm the creative director at Pocket Watch Games. In the last video, we talked about some of the design challenges we've been facing with moving from a top-down two-dimensional world into a 3D world with contiguous vertical space and a freeform camera. Problems like, how do we get the player to collaborate with their teammates? How do we get them to stick together? What kind of character designs work well in a space like this? Well, you had a lot of input on the last video, and I hope you'll have a lot of input on this video as well. With that input, we've been able to come up with some answers to some of these questions. I can't wait to walk you through some of those answers here. I'm also going to be giving you a tour of a new level, the bank, and talking to you about how we've designed the objectives to this level to help to encourage player collaboration. I'm also going to be walking you through our game engine. We're building our own game engine from the ground up, which is a slightly crazy thing to do, but I think it's going to be worth it for you because there's all sorts of benefits for the gamer. So with that said, let's get rolling. Here we go. Welcome to the bank. This is one of the optional levels in Monaco 2, not part of the primary storyline. And the objectives in this level are pretty simple. The team needs to collect 150 coins. There's 185 available. Now, many of those coins are contained in the vault, which is deep underneath the bank, and it's in a highly secured location. It requires 3 keys to open that vault. Now, the keys, one of them is on the vice president, who's upstairs somewhere. You'll have to pickpocket the vice president. Another one is also somewhere upstairs, stashed amongst the executive rooms. And there's one more in a secure location underneath the bank. You'll have to find those keys and then make your way down to the vault to get the money out of the vault. You don't have to get the money in the vault, but so much is in there that it is probably most efficient to do it. So what we've done here with these objectives is we've created a soft gating system. Rather than telling the player that they can't go downstairs, we tell them the most efficient way to finish this level is to get the keys upstairs first, because you're going to need those keys before you can get into the vault downstairs. And so we've found that with this sort of soft gating technique, it creates an experience not dissimilar from Monaco 1. It allows for that sort of free-form creativity on how you approach the level, but it does tend to encourage, in a soft way, players to stay together. So let's talk about one of the new core rules of the game design that we've discovered since the last video. There was this problem I've been mulling over. How do we get players to care about picking up coins? In Monaco 1, every 10 coins you picked up gave you another use of your equipment. But this caused all sorts of problems. The equipment had to be perfectly balanced, and it wasn't, because every 10 coins meant you get an extra use of a particular weapon, and the wrench was just better than the machine gun. So if you had the choice of a wrench or a machine gun, you'd always pick up the wrench and you'd hold on to it over the entire course of the level. Every 10 coins was simply more valuable if you were holding a wrench than it was if you were holding a machine gun. We changed that, and I think I talked about this a little bit in the last video. If you haven't watched it, go back and watch it. In Monaco 2, the weapons have a preset amount of ammo. So when you pick up a weapon, it comes with a certain amount of ammo. And so the more valuable weapons, the more powerful weapons, have less initial ammo, and the less valuable weapons, or the riskier weapons, have a higher initial ammo, right? You don't earn additional ammo by collecting coins. This leads to all sorts of cool, interesting things. Like, if the smoke bomb is downstairs and it only has 2 uses on it, you're likely to end up using that smoke bomb in the general downstairs area. But as you move upstairs, you might find another piece of equipment, and you'll have to replenish your ammo of your equipment, but it's not a smoke bomb anymore. So you'll have to use that other piece of equipment, let's just say it's a machine gun, to tackle the problems that you face upstairs. This leads to more equipment variation over the course of a single playthrough, but also in between that, if you play the same level multiple times, you'll find the equipment in different parts of the level. But this leaves coins out in the cold. What use do they have? Sure, I mean, it changes your score at the end of the level. You can use those coins to unlock extra features between levels. but it still just doesn't feel like enough incentive for players to have to go get that one coin that's stashed in the corner behind a bunch of traps in a room with 16 guards in it. Greed just isn't enough of an incentive for a lot of players. Well, we have a new designer coming on board, Clark Backstrand. He came up with this idea. Every 10 coins, ding, gives you an extra life. Now, in Monaco 2, one of the other changes from Monaco 1 is that we have these checkpoints. The checkpoints are at the tops of staircases. Initially, the idea was when you cross over one of these checkpoints, that becomes your respawn location. And also, any coins you'd picked up since the last time you'd crossed that respawn location get banked. Meaning, if you die, you drop all the coins that you've collected since the last time you crossed a checkpoint. You would get up to the top floor of a level, for instance. You would see that there was an objective on the other end of that floor, and you'd attempt to go get that objective. Maybe you die, and you drop the coins, only the coins that you've collected since the last time you hit that checkpoint. It allows you to try that multiple times, and replay that section of the level multiple times, as checkpoints are supposed to do. But this did lead to the game being significantly easier, and it led to players not trying all that hard to be stealthy. And we definitely want players to at least attempt to be stealthy, and then when all hell breaks loose, of course, it's still Monaco. On top of that, if a player revives another player, they don't burn through one of those lives. So it might be more accurate to call them respawns. So for every 10 coins you pick up, you get a respawn. So what does this lead to? Well, at the beginning of the mission, you're collecting coins like crazy. But if you're not playing carefully enough, you're likely dying occasionally and restarting back at the last checkpoint you touched, but without dropping the coins. But then as you approach the end of the level, you start to run out of coins to pick up, which means you're also starting to run out of lives. Which means as you play through the level, you might find, hey, my teammate is right here with me. Why don't I just have them revive me instead of burning through a respawn, right? And then you get down to towards the end of the level and you die. Maybe you die right near the bank vault where there's tons of security around. You only have one life left. Now you get back that classic Monaco experience of the team trying to figure out, how the heck are we going to revive you because you died in a room with 16 guards in it? So this 10 coins per respawn works really well. It isn't a mechanic that needs to be balanced. It brings back some of that old Monaco tension of figuring out how to revive someone in a dangerous situation. It makes you care about the coins, and it leads to an interesting arc of the drama as you play through the level. And it provides an additional incentive to staying near your teammates. If someone dies and your teammate is nearby, you don't have to burn through those respawns, and it gives you more chances later on in the level. And as the levels get harder and harder and harder, those lives might be necessary. We're building our own game engine for Monaco 2, which might be thought of as a little crazy, but I promise you it's not. The types of things that we wanted to do with this game really wouldn't be possible in an off-the-shelf game engine. You'd have to rip out the renderer and start from scratch, and at that point, why are you using a game engine, right? So two of the things that are really important to us in the Monaco experience are lots and lots of shadow casting lights, so that we can have flashlights all over the map and have players split into different areas of the map and have all of the lighting and rendering work totally normally and have all that dynamicism active in all places at all of the time. On top of that, given that it's a procedurally generated game, we wanted to make sure that even if we repeated assets in one place versus in another place, we wanted to make sure that that different areas of the level felt memorable and unique and recognizable from one another so that the player could orient themselves as to where they were and where they needed to go. Procedurally generated environments can be difficult to navigate and difficult to remember and understand because they are different every time you play them. So we've created this art style through the vision of Lee Dotson, our art director. And of course, our engine is built by our CTO, Joseph Riedel. And it's the style it's a painterly style with chunky paint strokes that is sort of meant to evoke some of the pixel art of Monaco 1. Each of the rooms can have its own lighting style and color style as well. There are 3 directional ambient lights in each of the rooms, defined as a fill and a shadow and a key light. And then the room itself is actually colored through basically a palletization effect, where we define a palette. The objects in the room itself can be defined to, say, have a bluish tint in one area of the level versus a greenish tint in another area of the level. And why is this important? First of all, it helps to separate one area of the level from another, but also, if we really want the interactive objects to pop, but also have a consistent design language. So let's say our interactive objects are generally colored green. In an area of the level that's blue, we can make sure that the particular green pops to the same degree against the blue non-interactive space, as opposed to you moving to another area of the level where there's actually, say, some green in the environment. We can color shift the greens of the interactive so that they still pop against the duller greens of the non-interactive space. So with some palletization, with that, unique lighting per room and per level, and on top of that, complex dynamic lighting where we can do shadow cast lights, hundreds of shadow cast lights active in the level at all times, is something that is really unique to our game engine. Another thing I really like about having our own game engine is the content system. Now, off-the-shelf game engines often have really great content systems, but one of the things that is difficult for them to do is iteration. Iterating on mechanics and changing up how things work when they've already been designed and implemented once can be very difficult. On top of that, those off-the-shelf game engines really just are not built with modding in mind. Well, our content system is built as a modding first game engine. Everything that we do in the game, you'll be able to do without hacking or kludging anything. So expect there to be a really vibrant modding community for the game. Now, we do have some in-game tools for things like level design, which you will also have access to and be able to use. But at the same time, our content system is a text-first content system. And so we use a sort of a JSON-like text format for defining our content in text. And then as we begin to harden the ideas about what the structure of that content is, sometimes we move it into some sort of tools-based workflow. But for the most part, I like to leave things in text. In a lot of ways, text is a lot easier to edit. It's also a lot easier to prototype and change, and it's a lot easier to mod than when you're using a tool where if you want to change something about the mechanics, you then have to go in and code a change to the tool as well. So our text-based system has all sorts of interesting abilities, like you can use object inheritance when defining an object. So if you create a player character object, you can actually create a second modified version of that player character by just inheriting all of the properties of that first one in text and then overriding whatever properties you want in a new text block. So these sorts of tools are going to be really, really powerful for the modding community out there. And for me, at least, I really enjoy these working in a text format as a coder to create our content. As opposed to Monaco 1, you'll be able to join people who have missions in progress mid-mission. Now, you may not be able to join as a thief, but you certainly will be able to join as an observer. This should keep our community vibrant for much, much longer than it was for Monaco 1. You'll see that superfan who is actually playing through a mission and enjoying themselves, and you'll see that they're live. You can then join in with them, and then they can say, hey, yay, I got a new teammate, let's start over, or you can wait until the mission is done and you can join them on their next mission. So that's it for this vlog. I want to hear in the comments below whether you think Clark is evil for introducing lives back into Monaco, or Joseph is crazy for building our own game engine. Also, if you have any questions about the game engine, the renderer, the networking model, the content system, what it means for modders or players, I want to hear those thoughts too. And lastly, if you have any other thoughts on how we can get players to collaborate, or thoughts on the things that we've done to get people to stick together over the course of a level, I want to hear those too. So that's it, and I'll see you next time.